I have a lot to catch up on. And before we jump into any of that, or of course what you're actually here for, being the Loki halfway review, I just want to address that this new setup that I have in a brand new apartment, we're finally getting unpacked. This is my new studio, and the sound is not what I want it to be. But I will say that I'm pretty happy with how things are coming out. So just be patient with me as everything kind of comes together, because this is not the final product, but we're getting there. And we're now living right by an airport, so what have I done? So I'm back from the dead now, kind of ish in a way. I'm making a video, obviously, so I'm kind of back. And what is it, you ask, that brings me back from such a dark, desolate place? Nothing else but Disney's new Marvel original, Loki. We just had episode 3 out of episode 6 released out of this series, and so we're going to talk about my thoughts so far, because I do have a lot of them. And I just want to dive right in right off the bat by jumping in and saying that this show already by episode 3 is severely better, infinitely better than the Falcon and the Winter Soldier could have ever hoped to be at its greatest moments. And that is such a relief for me to say. As much as I've never been a massive fan of Loki, I've really been looking forward to the show, because I feel like it's going to be a good refresh, something fun, something new, kind of a little bit quirky, something that is going to be something new to the table. Based off of the trailers we saw, we knew that there's going to be some sort of time group called the TVA that's keeping people on the proper time track and keeping things from going out of whack. A lot of questions automatically from those first trailers arise of, okay, if these people are trying to keep things in order, then why didn't they intervene with things like Avengers Endgame, when literally the whole plot is based off of time travel? And even some of the things in like the Ant-Man movies where they're in the quantum realm, and that does also mess with, different time travel variants and such. We're going to start off with episode 1 by saying that this episode came out with a swing. It was so much fun. Episode 1 to me was the main definer of figuring out whether I'm going to like this show or not, and I can happily, pleasantly say that by golly, it's such a good kickoff. And it picks up exactly where Endgame left off, where this variant Loki from the past back in 2012 took the Tesseract that the Avengers kind of messed up when they were going back in time to fix things up. He took the Tesseract, he used it to teleport over to another dimension, so on and so forth. The rest takes place as far as what happens in this show. He finds himself in the TVA being captured by people that are called Minutemen, who are basically people who are working for the TVA to capture any different people who go out of line in the time travel spectrum of things, to either get rid of them, decimate them, or put them back on their timeline. And most of their explanations actually make perfect sense for this movie, which is one of the reasons I like it. It feels like the explanations make a fair amount of sense. Introducing an entire new organization to the Marvel Universe at this point is very challenging, because they're either a small impact that you haven't heard about before, in which case they're not that fun to watch, or they're a big impact organization that suddenly you have a hard time explaining, wait, why are they here in the first place, and why haven't we heard about them in the past? And the explanation of this group is really exciting. And so this show really introduces a good purpose for the TVA, along with the purpose of why they have never been discovered. Their existence is meant to be undiscovered, and so it makes sense that we'd never heard of them before. Now, I have to also disclose that I've never really cared for Loki. He's always been a fan favorite, and I have never liked him. He was always, to me, just like a very thin-skinned coward, just always hiding behind bigger people, making it look like they're his servants or something. And I know that was part of the endearment of him, but he's always just been such a pathetic character to me. It actually, ironically, wasn't until Endgame that I grew respect for him and started to like the character, primarily because that was the first time we saw him not be a massive kiss butt to somebody like Thanos, and instead he stood up to him and ended up taking his life for it. They're doing for Loki what they did to me in WandaVision for Wanda and Vision, in turning such 2D purposeless, dumb characters into something so purposeful, meaningful, and a three-dimensional. And they're doing that for Loki. I love to see it. Owen Wilson is a spectacular part of the show. He's holding it together at this point, and I have proof of that too, that I'll explain in just a second when I get to a later episode. Overall, I have to say that the first episode of Loki was just a straight 10 out of 10 for me. The immense amount of character depth that they gave this character, this sly, evil, two-dimensional character within just a 50-minute episode is astounding to me. Within 50 minutes, they effectively brought us the arrogant Loki we know, broke him down, made him defy authority as we know him to. Use all his tricks that he ever does, come back around, humble himself, and actually come around to terms with his death and what's happened. Episode 2 came back with just as strong of a punch. I really enjoyed it. There's a lot of back and forth. There's a lot of typical Loki, is he, isn't he, is he good, is he bad, not really knowing what's going on, and that's what you'd expect from this show. They delivered on it. They did super good on that behalf. The humor is also really solid, something again that fell from grace pretty hard from Falcon and the Winter Soldier. This didn't do that. All the humor was great. I laughed out loud a couple times, just genuinely fun. I gotta say it again, episode 2, straight 10 out of 10, just so fun, nothing to fault about it. Great writing, great CGI, great story, moving it forward, so much crammed in without feeling overpacked, and fantastic acting on all ends. But that does lead us to the third episode. Now, it kills me to say, I cannot give straight 10 out of 10 praises all the way through up to this point of the show. Basically, episode 3 picks up where Loki and his variant self, who has been causing trouble and havoc, they run off together without trying to run off together. And the main Loki of the show is basically going after this variant Loki, trying to get him to submit to his plan and figuring out why he isn't wanting to do what he wants to do. It's also worth mentioning that it's revealed, kind of a major reveal, where you figure out finally that this big troublesome variant Loki that they're trying to catch is actually not him at all. It's a her. It's an alternate Loki that is a female. And I think this is where the episode in the show started to take its biggest mistakes. Now, the reason I'm saying this is because at the end of Loki episode 1, we basically have the reveal that they're chasing after this variant Loki. And that's when you start to really get hyped up for a lot of Loki versus Loki action, which can be genuinely fun if it's done properly. Now, we know that alternate versions of different people can vary, facially change, be different characters depending on where those dimensions are. But the fact that they decided to pull this random actress out from nowhere to play as Loki proves there's so many problems to me. For one thing, they got an entirely different gender and different actor for this Loki, which I think is offsetting. I think it would have been so fun just to see Tom Hiddleston and Tom Hiddleston. I think that would have been fantastic, and I think that would have been the greatest opportunity for quips and fun and laughs and yada yada, but also a lot of good one-on-one for figuring out the depth of his own character by talking to himself and their different life experiences. To have two different Lokis, two different Tom Hiddleston Lokis with two different backstories that they could learn from each other, it provides a lot of opportunity for depth to the character. But no, we're given this random actress. I don't know her name, and I'm not going to look it up because I genuinely don't care, and I don't think she's actually a very good actress, to be frank. This is not just any variant Loki. They go as far as not just to call her a female Loki, but then she says, "Don't call me that. I'm not Loki. Call me Sylvia." Why? I don't really know. But now she's Sylvia. So she's not even really Loki. She is, but she wants to be called Sylvia. We're inclined to think that she has honestly different parents and an entirely different life. And then lastly, she has literally entirely different powers. She can't do what Loki can do, and Loki can't do what Sylvia can do. Which then brings us to the question, at the end of the day, why are we doing this? Why is this an alternate Loki if it's not an alternate Loki? Now, I know there's a bunch of arguments in response to this of, well, alternate dimensions and yada yada. I'm not looking for a scientific answer here. I'm sure there's a technically correct answer to this. My question is, more specifically, why would the writers do this? Why would they take it in this direction? Of instead of giving us something fun and unique of this character, same character action with two really good developments going on. Instead, they give us a whole new character with the excuse of being an alternate dimension Loki. Guess what? I'm going to call it as I see it. If she doesn't look like Loki, if she doesn't act like Loki, if she doesn't have the same name as Loki, the same family, parents, backstory as Loki, or the same powers as Loki, fun fact, she's not Loki. And she's not an alternate dimension Loki. At least I'm not going to sit here pretending like it. This is the MCU's weak excuse to introduce a new female strong character, and there's plenty of ways to do that in a way that is good and cohesive and makes sense in the story. But in this case, it just felt forced. Not only forced, but actually a sacrifice to what could have been a much more fun, awesome opportunity of a show. Aside from that, I have to admit, like I said, I genuinely just don't like the actress they chose for Sylvia. She kind of annoys me. I don't know why. I haven't lost hope for the show. I think it's 2 for 3, 2 straight 10s out of 3 is still a really good hit and run so far. My nervousness is that they created in this third episode this whole stupid side plot that they invented that they're trying to solve, and then, aside from it just being a sidetrack for the rest of the show, they didn't even solve the problem by the end of the episode, which means it's going to creep into next episode, and we're going to have to keep watching them on this ridiculous-looking Star Wars planet. For episode 3, we're giving it a 5 out of 10. It wasn't the worst. Trust me, I've seen much worse in The Falcon and the Winter Soldier. takes Far Cry Championship for those lower numbers like 3, 2, 1. Thanks so much for watching, guys. It's kind of fun having a show that comes out on Wednesdays so that throughout the week I have something to be excited about. So I'm looking forward to making my end of the show review in a few weeks, and I'm really hoping I have a lot of good things to say about it. So just hope with me. All right, guys, I'm back into form and fashion, and as such, I'm looking to make a bunch of other videos that I'm really excited to make, movie reviews that have been coming out, and also new tour reviews. You can see my new collection display, and yes, I'm going to be making a collection video very soon, and trust me, it's much more than what you're looking at behind me, and I'm really excited for that. Thanks for sticking around. Subscribe if you haven't. All right, that's it for now. See you later, guys.